Hey guys, in this episode of MTR Conversations, I talk with Christina about B2B corporate bookings and how to get those kind of bookings for your midterm rental, how to build those relationships and get exposure there. We also talk quite a bit about background checks, which seem like a very kind of mundane topic, but we kind of get into some really conceptual, what is the purpose of a background check, situations where we might not do a background check, different booking channels and how we approach that, and some examples that we've talked about on her from her experience and my experience of this process of making sure we get the right tenants in our home. If this is your first time seeing one of these conversations or even my channel, my name is Alan Duan. I own a mid-terminal property management company in Los Angeles, and Christina is a member of our MTR school community, where we do weekly calls talking about MTRs, connecting others in this space, and really just helping each other out. Um, we know the questions that our members have, while they're specific for what they're looking to learn, are also questions that many of you guys have if you're trying to learn about midterm rentals. So we want to make this conversation available to you guys. And if you want to learn more about MTRs, come hang out with us in the community. It's free. We do a weekly live call, and there's a community there and a message board to learn from. But we hope you enjoy this conversation that Christina and I have. So, B2B, are you interested about corporate specifically, or like corporate insurance or other things too?
Um, the whole umbrella. I wanted to know how you got your first B2B deal
Yeah.
and then what led to that. Did you
Yeah.
start off with insurance or, doing like short-term Airbnb type deals and then it just landed on your desk? What led to your first B2B deal?
Great question. I'm not sure if I can remember the first, but I imagine so. The first thing I'll say is, because we are like, our business is not like the lead connecting kind of model that like Keith, like Ruben's doing. We don't spend that much effort doing like actual outreach, cold calls, that kind of stuff. So that's the first thing I'll say.
Okay.
Not that that's not a good idea. It's just not our thing, because our main thing is the property management. So my focus is finding more homeowners who need our services, right? Which is in a big part why I like working with those companies, because they're doing that. And I have thought about like maybe one day we'll get so big I'll hire someone in-house to do it, but that'll be way.
Mm-hmm.
So I love partnering with those who are like focused on that and an expert on that. So for us, I imagine the first way, and it's still a common way that happens now, is simply like those bookings will come through Airbnb and Furnish Finder, right? Like insurance, corporate, those whether it's a reconnect of themselves or like the relocation company, Sedgwick, CRS, they'll use those sites. So it still happens now where we get like an Airbnb inquiry. And it's funny, I'll recognize the guy, like, hey, Arthur, like, can we know each other? But he just on Airbnb
Yeah.
one. And then of course if I have the number, I'll just text them right from that point on. Um, and then I think to answer your question specifically, I think what's paid off very well for me is just the networking and being active in these Facebook groups. And then by extension, like the MTR Summit events or other like real estate or mid-terminal kind of in-person events. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
because my goal, I kind of accidentally stumbled into it, and now it's a very intentional goal, is I want people to come to us as, like in this whole ecosystem, the role I play, I'm not the lead connector, but I have the housing, right? And what I told Keith earlier is like, my goal is to increase the inventory of furnished rentals in my market, because a lot of our clients they have a long-term unfurnished rental and then they go MTR and they hire us. So we're helping them kind of make their property into an MTR. And then now when we work with someone who has the bookings and they're like, hey, I need all these homes in LA, then I'm trying to create those. At the same time,
Got it.
helping those investors, right? Helping those landlords make more money. Um, so my goal now really is I want everyone to know that I think we already are the biggest MTR like manager, There are bigger short-term rental managers who focus short-term, but like for
Mhm.
property management company that focuses on MTR, I think we have the most. And then of course it's easy for someone to come to one person to have that has all the inventory, right? Versus multiple.
Yes.
So as we've networked and met people, like I met Ruben at the 2024 MTR Summit when he was getting started, and we just kept in touch. Uh, and just all the different people I met, whether just through the Facebook groups or in person, and like they just remember like, oh yeah, Alan in LA, so let me reach out to him, with those leads. So it kind of just happened that way, just over and over and over.
Got it.
Yeah.
So being the property manager and having so much pressure to make sure that the people who you're bringing into these people's properties are fully vetted,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
To protect the people's properties because they're putting all their trust in you.
Yep.
Do you go through a background check for every single insurance claim that comes through your company? Or what steps do you use to vet everyone to make
Mm,
sure that you don't have a squatter situation, especially since we are
yeah.
in LA?
Yeah. Yeah. This is one of those things where I could share how I do it and the logic behind it, but it's not necessarily what I would recommend for others to do exactly. So I would say I'm definitely on the kind of the continuum. I'm not ultra like cautious and like having all my, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like I'm not being like I could probably be do even more screening to be like extra for sure, right? But there's a
Mm-hmm.
point where it's like, yeah, like how necessary is that? So I'll give you kind of specific examples. So let's say it could be corporate as well, but like insurance, we get more insurance bookings overall than corporate, so more experience there. But let's say it's either a relocation company or one of the lead connectors, and sometimes I'm sure you've dealt with this too. Sometimes they have a policy where they, if we ask for a background check for the people who stay at the home, they will say they don't do that, and they've already background checked them, right? I'm
Yes.
okay with that. If it's a company I've worked with before and I trust the company, right? If it's a brand new, like, I never heard about them and they kind of popped up on Facebook and they reached out, maybe different, right? So there's kind of it's either in lieu of background checking the actual residents in the house, I'm trusting this company, this lead connector, whoever it is, right? So
Right.
yeah. And at the same time, as a property manager, we probably have some clients who are more like they want to, I'll say more risk averse, so they want to do all those extra things. And then we have clients who are more hands off. They're like, hey, we trust you. You know what you're doing. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about the details too much. So this is probably like more of a very specific property management thing, right? Versus someone who owns their own property. I think when someone owns their property, naturally, they want to do everything to take care of it and kind of like all the extra work is worthwhile for them. Like for us, if we know we're taking care of the home, we're not bringing someone that's gonna be a problem, I'm okay with that. Um, it hasn't bit us in the butt yet. For we've had some very bad short-term rental guests. That's a whole different game. Midterm,
Mm-hmm.
it's like maybe like extra messy is probably the worst we've had. Like we haven't had anything close to a squatter situation. And in my experience, like a midterm rental guest is much lower risk of squatting than a long-term tenant. So like
Mm-hmm.
the risk is like usually it's the long-term owner who's like, but what about squatters? And I tell them like long-term tenants could squat too. Like it's not like it's not
Right.
for them. Yeah.
So have you dealt with any of the relocation companies that have said that they don't do a background check at all? I've run into that recently and I'm
I
just
they
have
don't they
stuck.
don't background check the family either.
Yes.
I don't recall anyone's doing that. That's Yeah. If I don't recall ever having that happen. If I knew that was the case, I would be more inclined to do the background check for myself. I'm trying to think why. I guess they have less to lose, so it doesn't really benefit them. and then the insurance company is ultimately their client, not the family, right? Yeah, but I don't recall that ever coming up specifically. So you say you dealt with
I,
that?
I've just recently,
Okay.
we have vacancy,
Yeah.
and we've had this company that's sent me two leads so far.
Yeah.
And one of them I had to, well, one of them came from a reputable relocation company that
Okay.
is well known.
Yep.
And it came through, and I said, of course, we're vacant.
Yeah.
We run a background check. They said, no problem. So we met the family, had a very good vibe from the
Yeah.
family. They were ready to move in right away. So, okay, our next step is to do a background check. That's when things got very squirrely.
Oh,
Um, the insured
yeah. Yeah.
had lied about who actually came to do the walkthrough of
Interesting.
who was related to her. It was three adults and two kids that came. So she had said that the person who came with her was her son
Got
and
it.
her daughter-in-law. Then when I spoke with the relocation company, they said that that was her brother and sister-in-law. I said,
That's
okay, well, that's strange.
yeah.
And then the person who owned the home, the insured,
Yeah.
he was not part of the discussion. He never came for the walkthrough. He was never in contact with the relocation company.
Okay.
So that was also a little strange that the person who was actually insured
Yeah.
was not in the conversation.
Wow.
So I did some digging around. I found out that their home was actually in foreclosure and that they hadn't paid their property taxes.
Got it.
So it was just like, well, I can't move forward. And the
Yeah.
relocation company said, I completely understand. Um, I'll send this back to the insurance company and let them know how they want to handle this.
Got
So prior to that, I didn't know where I really stood
uh-huh.
on going through with the background check or not. And
Yeah.
then with this, it just solidified everything. I'm like,
Yes.
you don't know at all. And there's another company that I met a rep from their company at a meetup over the summer. And they called and said, hey, we have a claim. Are you vacant? I said, yes. I
Yeah.
said, I need to do a background check. And they got pretty upset. They're like, well, we don't do background checks because the insurance companies prefer that we don't because
Okay.
it upsets the insured and we just want to make everything seamless. These people are homeowners, you know, they have to already go through extensive
Yeah.
background when they go by their house. We're not just dealing with anyone off the street. And I said, I
Right.
completely understand. But then I just shared what just happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is exactly why. I'm like, not every homeowner is a responsible
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
So I'm just stuck. I know that these are my standards,
Yeah.
but I'm also now sitting vacant and they just came to me with a second
Mm.
lead, and I had to decline because they're declining a background check as well. And
Got it.
I'm like, where do I go from here?
Yeah.
How would someone else handle this in this situation?
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing I'm thinking is like, what is the purpose of a background check? Right. Well, let me ask you, like for you with your standards here requiring the background check, what's your reason for requiring it?
I need to know, especially for all the adults, I need to make sure that I don't have a a pedophile, like a sexual offender, because there's kids in the neighborhood.
Right.
I need to make sure that you're responsible, that you pay your bills on time, and that just leads me to believe that you walk a straight path,
Yes.
right? And if you don't have good credit, then that's also fine because we all find ourselves in hard situations. But I'd like an explanation to see what happened.
Got it.
And if everything adds up and I can paint a picture with the whole story,
Yeah.
then I feel more comfortable and inclined to accept.
Got
And
it.
also someone who's willing to have a background check performed on them also has nothing to hide.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. Um, you know, one of the so I'll use like Airbnb as an example. So you use Airbnb to get bookings too?
I do. It's funny. They said, well, if you want, we can to circumvent or to go
Yeah.
around not getting a background check. Let's book it through Airbnb. You can hike up your price
Yeah.
and we'll book it through there. And I said, well, Airbnb doesn't give me much security.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask,
you
like,
know,
do how do you handle this background check need for an Airbnb booking then? Do you also do background checks there or something different?
I do. Well, I'm a new operator.
No?
So we've just been operating for 7 months now. And all through my Airbnb listing, I do say that I require a background check and a lease
Okay.
to be completed.
Yep.
And I also don't accept any direct bookings for that same reason.
Okay.
So I believe I'm doing this right. So if I accept the booking request after having communication with
Yep.
the booker, then there's an understanding that we're
Yeah.
going to do it background and lease. And if they don't, then I can cancel it and I'm covered because the verbiage is in the language is in
Yeah.
the
That's my understanding as well. Have you had a booking through Airbnb?
I had one
Okay.
and I went against my gut or against my standard in this one
Sure.
because it was a international group that came from China to work
Yep.
for they were a third party company that worked for Honda and they worked on prototype vehicles.
Cool.
And after the discussion with the booker, he told me the name of the company, where they were coming from. I looked them up and I was able to do my own screening
Yeah.
with that information and I felt comfortable and it was actually the best experience.
Yeah.
And it worked out well.
Yeah. So
Um,
I think that's a great example, right? Where the background check process, at least how it's set up in the US, right, is a formalized process just so everyone has like a way of doing it, right? But the way I see it, the end goal is we're just trying to make sure we have good tenants slash guests, right? So
mhm,
I think that when it's an international guests, usually you have to go this way because they don't you can't run, social security numbers. So I remember we maybe last year, 2 years ago, we also had an international guest, as a family from like Europe, and they had a business and they were expanding into LA. So literally, they gave me their business website, their social media, and I could tell it's like a legit business. They sell like sneakers. The guy has a YouTube presence. I'm like, okay, like I feel pretty good. You're who you are, and like you have a business. Clearly, you're making some money, expanding. Uh, but it's like a alternative way of kind of accomplishing the same thing, right? So,
mhm,
like, again, this is what we do, not necessarily what I would recommend for everyone, but on Airbnb, we don't do a lease or background check. Um, there's different reasons for that. I don't know if this is true. I don't have data, but perhaps it might help with bookings, like one less hurdle for guests. But
mhm,
I'm comfortable with the way we do screen because it's not we don't do any screening. It's just different. The way we do screen guests and just the conversation we have and like, hey, what brings you to town? What do you stay? Who's staying with you? Why are you looking for a image rental or furnished rental? And that conversation usually gives me a good feel. And part of it maybe it's I've had the repetitions, so I could kind of have that intuition that something's off. But
yeah.
again, it's not what I would recommend, right? But the goal is the same. So I don't think there's a right or wrong approach. Like I'm not like for as far as the way you're doing it. Um, yeah, I think it's I wish I could give like more concrete advice, but yeah, it's
Well, it's so case by case,
yeah,
like every
yeah,
situation is so unique and different
yeah.
that you can't apply the same
Yeah,
exact
you have your
rule book.
general, yeah. And I think it's so when you have like a showing, are you the one who does the showings for any kind of leads?
Yes,
Yeah,
uh-huh.
so I think that's great, right? Because I have some of my team do it, but that gives you a really good sense of like the feel, right? The conversation and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And not that we want to screen someone just based on that, right? Because it could get kind of messy, but it is one, part of the process. So, when it comes to these insurance, you know, bookings and these lead connectors who don't let you do it, I mean, I think it's a business choice ultimately, right? Between, like you're saying,
Yeah.
a booking versus vacancy. I will say summer, this you haven't gone through your 12-month cycle yet. So, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
fall is always slow. So we're in the same market. We have like 8 to 10 properties currently vacant out of like our
Okay.
42. And most of those properties had summer bookings that basically checked out end of August and they're all vacant at the same time. So while it
Mm-hmm.
kind of like feels painful and our guests are getting a little anxious, I mean, sorry, our owners, it's what I
Yeah.
it's not like a surprise to me. So in that sense, I'm sure if you do a search on Airbnb for your area, you'll see like, oh, there's a lot of other properties also available. So, you can
Mm-hmm.
price differently, kind of lower your prices. but it's not unusual to hear that you're vacant right now.
How long does the season last for?
Um, I would say, let's see, I would say September, October are probably the slowest seasons of the year. Oh, sorry, slowest months
Okay.
of the year. Summer is great. And then the holidays have their own little demand. And then really like once it hits March, like March through August is always strong. Um, yeah. So, the way I see it is, and for your specific property, like you always want to have a good feel of what's available. That's the similar properties to yours that are currently available and what they're priced at. Something you
Hmm.
can check, like a few times a week. And then, if your properties and the other properties are very similar, usually when it's slow, the only thing you could really do is lower prices. And try to get a booking when they do come around, based on the price. Um, yeah. So I'm not saying you should expect it to be vacant until November, but just from my experience, these 2 months are slower.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, you guys have been so helpful, and I try to get it
Awesome.
as much as I can. There's just so much information everywhere, and
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes it feels like information overload, but everything
Yeah.
that you and James put out is gold, like truly.
Thank you. I mean, that makes me so happy to hear. We love sharing what we learn, and it's you know, like the school community is a side business, in a sense for us, especially with the paid membership now. But it is something
Yeah.
that I look forward to every week. It's like like there's I've learned there's tasks that I do that are draining and energizing, right? I think that's true for everyone. Like these calls are energizing for me, and I'm an introvert, so that's saying a lot. Just I enjoy hanging out with people, whether in person or online, in this space. Yeah, so I'm always happy to hear that's beneficial for someone.
For sure. Well, I thank you so much because I just have, and when I talked to Keith about it,
Mm.
I talked to the mentors about it, like about where I feel like, am I just being too stern with this rule that I
Sure.
have? Or should I just accept the booking? But at the end of the day, like if it doesn't feel right and you have your standards and you just stick by them, and even if that means passing up a booking, then just so be it. If your standards don't align with another company, you don't have to work with them. Um,
Yeah, yeah. It's I agree. I'll use example that I dealt with maybe a few weeks ago. So for us, as a property manager, we're often vetting the property owners who are interested in hiring us, right?
okay.
Because we don't want to take just anyone, and oftentimes it's actually the property owner that's more of an issue than the property itself. Because the property itself is pretty easy to look at, like what's the address, what are the photos, looks good. But we,
Uh-huh.
like as a property management company, like owners who either are too, like they don't want to spend any money on the property, or maybe they're too like micromanaging, that's usually not a good fit. So we have, as example, we have an onboarding fee for new properties that we manage. Uh, in and of itself, I'm fine waiving the onboarding fee if it's the right client, the right homeowner, the right property. But we had one a while back where he said like that was an obstacle, like he only wanted to sign up if we waived it. And I said no, not because the onboarding fee was that big a deal. It's because it was revealing to me that the owner wasn't a good fit for us. So that was really just
Okay.
where I kind of, because I don't want to outright say like, sorry, never mind, we can't help you, right? I wanted to kind of find how do we like, what kind of like, I guess requirements are we going to use so they could almost like self-qualify or disqualify themselves. So I think in
Right.
your situation, there's probably situations like you had your with international group where you do waive your requirement and it's okay. But I think having it there is still sometimes just simply having it helps you, like I said, screen people out, like whether they'll do it or not,
Yeah.
right? So you make that rule for yourself, which means you could also not follow it when you choose not to.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Did you start off as a management company for long term, or how did you get
Oh,
into
yeah.
this?
So I got started doing rental arbitrage, like the traditional, not like the reverse arbitrage. So where we sign a
Okay.
12-month lease and we furnish the place. And we did
Hmm.
this. So 2017, 2018 is when we started. And we were all of our apartments we were getting were near Disneyland. So me and my friend were doing this and short-term rentals, and Disneyland obviously was a great market to do short-term. So we
Mm-hmm.
got up to 13 apartments before the pandemic. And of course, Disneyland closes. So we were just waiting, right? Like, when is it going to reopen? And eventually we had to move out of all of them because with arbitrage, you have to pay rent even if you're not making money, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of accidentally fell into like co-hosting, and then we became a property management company. But before the rental arbitrage, I had no real estate experience. So it was really just an opportunity for me to kind of build something of my own and get on my W-2.
Wow. So it just started with you and a friend, and that's it?
Yeah, yeah. So my friend found some online coach that talked about rental arbitrage because it's pretty new back then. No one's heard of it. And then he told me about it, and we started doing it together. And then especially after the first summer, like we made so much money that first summer, we're like, let's get
Mm-hmm.
apartments, let's get as many as we can. So we scaled quickly to 13, and then of course pandemic. But the pandemic showed me kind of like the pros and cons of co-hosting versus arbitrage. Uh, so,
Mm-hmm.
so we started doing more co-hosting, and then we operate under a real estate brokerage now to be a property management company.
Okay. Did
Yeah,
you get your license?
I'm working on that. So most people don't know this, right? Like co-hosting and property management, the the services that you provide look very similar, but in the eyes of like the state, property management is a regulated like industry, right? Like profession.
Uh-huh.
So you have to either have in California, you have to have the broker's license or operate under someone who does. So far, I'm working on getting mine, but so far I've been operating under someone else's, and I pay them commissions. They kind of oversee us. But yeah, so that's why it's kind of like a nitpicky thing I have whenever someone says like, "Oh, I'm a property manager." I ask, "Are you really? Or are you just saying that?"
Yes.
It's actually you have to go do things to get. Otherwise, you could be a co-host, I guess. Kind of a that's like the workaround.
So when you do like I've heard about this gray area,
Yeah.
right? So when you're doing co-hosting, what is the true difference of co-hosting and property management? How do you, because you're still accepting the money and then giving it to the owner,
So
or is the
you're
owner
not supposed
accepting
to.
the money?
Yeah.
Right.
So it does vary by state, but in most states, I think it is like California. If you're not a property manager, you cannot collect the rent. You can't have control of the funds. So usually then a co-host, what they do is they have things set up where a booking comes in, it goes to the owner directly, and then you could like
Hmm.
invoice the owner your fee, right? So the funds go to the owner, you get your fee. Versus for us, we collect the funds, it's called trust accounting. It has to be set in a separate account, and then we pay the owner
Okay.
minus our fee. And then also like maintenance and stuff like that. So that's one big difference. The other one is like in a lease we could put our name as the landlord. If you're a co-host,
Uh-huh.
you put the owner's name because a co-host is not a landlord, like on a tenant landlord kind of document.
Yes.
Those are the big two kind of obvious ones. There are a lot of areas that I would say are still gray. Like technically a property manager, yeah, also someone who could like advertise the space, could coordinate maintenance, which is technically what co-hosts do. So
Yeah.
I've talked to attorneys and real estate brokers about this, and there is a gray space there. Like if you want to be absolutely following it to the letter, then even co-hosting is not allowed. And then when it's short term, it's even more gray. So some people think short term is not the tenant landlord laws don't apply to short term, but if you have
Uh-huh.
a midterm, then it gets a lot closer to like long-term rental like regulations. Yeah.
Yeah. I I'm teetering on getting my license for that case. So if I come up on a co-hosting opportunity,
Yeah.
then I'm just doing it all the way right. But I just need to learn how to do it first. You know what I
Sure,
mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean, as you learn to do your own, you will know pretty much what you need. Like so many co-hosts I know, their story is like, I have a few of my own properties, and then people know what I do, and they ask me to manage theirs, right? So the
yeah.
skill set you learn managing your own will translate. The main difference is like, understanding the owner's needs, what their goals are. But I think it's a pretty natural transition. It just depends on what kind of business you want to build.
And then the landlords, the owners that you're meeting, when they're looking at their rates, their rate, the rate that they're getting paid is a standard long-term rental rate, right?
No,
And
so
then you make the split off of
no,
the
so
MTR
that's
rate.
if you're doing arbitrage, at least the traditional way, if I was doing a rental arbitrage as the operator, I would basically just rent an unfurnished rental, pay the unfurnished long-term rate, and I'm a tenant. But then I get permission to furnish it and sublease it out, and then I make the difference there, right? So if I rent it
Okay.
for 3,000, I MTR for 5,000, I keep 2,000, right? But if I don't get
Mm-hmm.
any bookings that month, I still have to pay my rent, 3,000 rent. So
Right.
property management, which is this is the same for co-hosting, usually you're charging a percentage fee of the rent. So if I rent out for 5,000, our MTR rate is 15%. We keep that, and then the owners get 85%. So it's the risk and reward shifts to the owner because they can make a lot more than long-term rates, but then they also
Mhm.
can make nothing if there's no bookings. So arbitrage is less risky for the owner and more risky for me as the operator, which is one of the reasons why I shifted over. Again, if you don't get any bookings, you're still on the hook for the rent if you're doing arbitrage.
So as a co-host, there's just no obligation to have it booked.
Yeah, I mean the only obligation, I mean the only loss is you have unhappy customer that might cancel and your reputation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the way I would sum up the differences of those two models from my experience is arbitrage, the hardest part is managing cash flow and yeah, pretty much your cash flow. Uh,
Uh-huh.
Co-hosting or property management, it's managing the client relations. Because now the client, like for example, right now with our vacancies, the clients are, knocking on the door. Hey, it's still vacant. What's going on? I have to explain to them, have a call,
Mm-hmm.
right? With arbitrage, there's none of that. So like for as a business owner, you have to decide like which one do you prefer doing, right? Every business has pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
I enjoy customer service, so I enjoy working with my owners and helping them out. So I choose that model.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I got to figure out what path I'm going to take here.
Yeah, yeah. So you said you are considering co-hosting potentially?
If the opportunity presents itself,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I just want to get comfortable in our own first and really have our systems in place
Yeah.
and just feel very, very comfortable with our own because right now I still feel like I'm learning the way
Yeah.
and trying to figure out our own processes just for our own. And I don't want to mess up anybody else's before.
Sure.
I'd rather mess up on my own than someone
Sure.
else's.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that was those were my biggest questions were the B2B,
Yeah.
the corporate stuff because I am very interested in that on um, I want to reach back out. I don't have a sales background, so
Yeah.
being in AirVenture helps that with that
Yeah.
a lot with the scripts and Keith is like a super salesman, so I'm learning a lot from him, and he's like
Yeah.
very, very helpful on just how to go after these corporate companies and reaching out to them and what to say and
Yeah.
um, follow up timelines and all of that. Like that interests me a lot.
Got it. Cool. Sounds good.
So well, I'm hoping we can make this work with what we have
Yeah, yeah.
brewing.
Definitely. I think it's a great fit because we do have like a South Bay kind of focus, just coincidentally
Hmm.
about this. And we have a lot of vacancies right now. So usually like if you ask me in the summer, I'd be like, oh, sorry, everything's booked. But
Yeah,
yeah, if it works out, I'm excited to work together.
very excited.
All
Well, all
right.
right. So,
Um,
so how does this work now? Do we?
There, I mean, there's nothing specific.
Okay.
I'll get around to hopefully next week, maybe this week or next week, kind of get to editing and getting it all together. Uh,
Okay.
you can let me know, if you have thoughts about areas you want to kind of cut out, and then I could show you like the final version before publishing it, or is that the word? Posting it.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I usually just add like a little like 1 minute introduction of myself in the beginning, and then we'll just use the recording. But pretty
Okay.
straightforward.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. This is cool. And I hope that, I mean, I know that this is going to work out good for you. And it's like pretty cool content. So thank you
Thank you.
so much.
All right, cool. All right, good talking to you.
All
Talk to
right.
you.
Likewise, have a good one.
You too. Take care.